Just when we thought we'd dodged nuclear war in Eastern Europe and in the Persian Gulf, a new mushroom cloud menace has arisen. The Pakistan Defense Minister says an Indian attack on his country is imminent, which means that by the time you see this, we may already be in the throes of a war like no other. India has 172 nuclear weapons, and Pakistan has 170 nuclear weapons. More than enough nuclear firepower to destroy both countries many times over, but to cast a nuclear winter across all of South Asia, with the inevitable possibility of drawing in the nuclear superpowers who are currently, in propaganda terms, arraigned along both sides. The proximate reason for this potential war, like so many others before it, is the troubled question of Kashmir. Now let me put my own cards on the table. I am a supporter of the legitimate rights of the people of Jammu and Kashmir to the self-determination that was promised to them at partition in 1948 and in the 1950s by a unanimous decision of the Security Council of the United Nations for a plebiscite, so that the people of that troubled and now long occupied and repressed region could express their democratic wishes for with whom and how they wished to live. I am long associated with the country of Pakistan. I hold the two highest civil awards in Pakistan, the Halal-e-Quaid-e-Azam for my work on the restoration of democracy in Pakistan in the 1970s, and my work in support of the people of Kashmir in the 1980s and 1990s. So I have a dog in this fight, but I'll try my best to be objective. The proximate reason for this latest flare-up of this ancient conflict, not as ancient as Donald Trump thought, it's not been thousands of years, because actually neither Pakistan nor India existed as states until 1948. But it is an ancient, and it has never gone away, this conflict. So the proximate reason is the terrorist attack on tourists, which left 26 tourists dead in Kashmir. Most of them Hindus, some of them Muslim, one of them Christian. I have no idea who carried out this terrorist attack, but it was a terrorist attack. It was a crime, murder most foul. Murdering innocent civilians, unarmed people, is always a crime. But the claim of responsibility came from a Kashmiri fighting organization which I have never heard of. And if I've never heard of it, that should automatically make you suspicious. I believe it was a false flag, but whose false flag, I'm not in a position to say. One thing I can say is that the story that Pakistani forces traveled 400 kilometers through the most heavily militarized place on earth, one Indian soldier for every 7 inhabitants in the occupied territory of Jammu and Kashmir, is inherently unlikely. I rule out that the hand which last shook the Pope the night before he died, and the hand that was taking selfies outside the Taj Mahal, the hand of the American Vice President J.D. Vance, may have anything to do with it, but it is a pretty remarkable coincidence. And when he was taking those selfies outside the Taj Mahal, India was already declaring war. It has already started the war by unilaterally abrogating the Indus Waters Treaty signed in 1960 depriving the people of Pakistan of water. Sounds familiar, right? And it's not a coincidence either that Israeli warplanes and other aircraft from Netanyahu's apartheid state were on the tarmac in New Delhi within hours of this dramatic development. But by cutting off water, on which 80% of Pakistani people depend, this is as clear an act of war as you can imagine. It's right out of Netanyahu's playbook. I do know that if there's a war between India and Pakistan, it will further beggar the poor in both countries. 50% of the national budget of both countries is spent on defense, mainly against each other. I do know that if the shots and missiles start flying, the threshold for a nuclear conflagration dramatically falls. So I pray and hope that this will not become a hot war. But Kashmir is a war that's always waiting to happen. So what does India and Pakistan at loggerheads, daggers drawn, mean for the domination of the West? You've come to the right place to discuss it. Have it out with Galloway. Richard Medhurst is a brilliant British independent journalist and political commentator, well known now for his reporting on international relations, US politics, and the Middle East. His work has earned tens of millions of views online, with appearances frequently on television, radio, and other outlets. And I'm always very pleased to meet him again and hear what he thinks this standoff is really all about. Richard, welcome.
Hi, George. Thanks for having me on the program.
What do you think is behind all of this?
Well, George, I have to first issue a small disclaimer the way that you did. I also have a dog in this fight, to a certain extent, because Pakistan, I think, is probably the first country I lived in because of my parents' work precisely in the Kashmir peacekeeping and observer mission. So we were posted there for a couple of years. So, I have a deep appreciation for Pakistan and its people. And look, my mind is open to all scenarios. I'm not saying that, what India is saying is necessarily wrong or what Pakistan is saying is necessarily wrong. Anything is possible, truly. But I think given Modi's history of explicitly threatening to cut off the water supply to Pakistan, which you rightly pointed out accounts for, well, I mean, it's a very bare minimum 50% of Pakistan's agriculture. But, if you take drinking water into account and just everything else, 80% of the Pakistani people's needs are covered through the Indus Treaty. So, they've had escalations and wars in the past. I think this is probably the fifth one, but it's never been driven to that point. And Modi has explicitly threatened in the past to cut this off, and now he's suddenly got a beautiful pretext, a beautiful cover story to do just that. And honestly, I mean, think about the Pakistanis. What do they gain from this by sending, as you pointed out, troops up to one of the most heavily fortified areas in the world? They gain absolutely nothing. It smells like a stitch-up to me. It looks like it could be a false flag more than anything else. But in any case, it certainly helps Modi accomplish one of his long-term goals, which is to cut off water to Pakistan. And this is devastating. And when they say that it's a declaration of war, they're absolutely right. Everyone has a right to water. It's an enshrined human right. So you can't just cut this off to a country like Pakistan, which has nuclear weapons, and then think that there's not going to be some kind of escalation. And we're headed into very dangerous territory. So again, I can't say either way who did this terrorist attack. It did happen. We know that for sure. But I just don't see why Pakistan would have a motive to do it, and I see Modi having a motive. But again, we can't know for certain. Not now.
Trump says this has been a flashpoint for thousands of years, but the two states in question only came into being in 1947, not 1948, as I had earlier said. I was confusing it with somewhere else. But it has been a long, suppurating sore, and I didn't know that you had a history there. But I'm right in saying, am I not, that Kashmir is always a war waiting to happen?
Yes, you are, and I know exactly why you said 48, because this is the same. I mean, it's a difference of what, 12 months that the British Empire was quote unquote pulling out and leaving behind these giant messes that won't be cleaned up for hundreds of years. So no, I think Trump was just trying to repeat this this stereotype that he's said before about, like, oh, well, there's always been conflict in the Middle East. I mean, it's sort of a racist trope. It's like, well, they're barbaric people. And he's so used to saying that he's tried to copy and paste that onto Pakistan and India, but he's just doesn't know his own history. Isn't he? His mother is British, I think. So, the UK is responsible for this problem of Kashmir. India was partitioned by the British Empire, and the same thing in Palestine in 48. So, it's not far-fetched whatsoever to connect those two events. And, it doesn't bring me any pleasure to say this, but yeah, I mean, the UK shares a lot of blame for what's going on, and it is a war waiting to happen. There's been a peacekeeping and observer mission there for decades. And, China also has a small chunk of it. I don't know if anyone's taken the time to ever look at the border between India, China, and Pakistan, but there isn't one. It's just a bunch of, half opaque lines, because nothing has been agreed on. So I don't think China is going to get drawn into this, from a military standpoint, but certainly that possibility of a war exists between India and Pakistan. And you correctly pointed out the number of nuclear weapons they have. It's about 170 each. I think India has slightly a few more warheads than Pakistan. But, they take this so seriously. This is such a dividing issue between the two that they've actually... Nuclear weapons. I mean, it's very, very serious. We talk about Ukraine, we talk about Iran and Israel, maybe those scenarios leading us to a nuclear war, but this is just as serious. We have to take it with great apprehension, and we have to try and find some sort of recourse, because right now no one is trying to mediate. You don't see the Americans trying to do it, if they ever mediate, in good faith. But in previous crises between India and Pakistan, you've had people come in and mediate and provide an off-ramp, and we're not seeing that now.
Well, there's been quite a change in the international configuration, and it doesn't seem to have been cured by India's membership of the BRICS. India was historically a very close ally of the Soviet Union, and Pakistan a very close ally in all weathers through all governments of the People's Republic of China. But now the Americans and Modi are as thick as thieves. They're as close as can possibly be, and it's not entirely clear what influence Russia any longer has in New Delhi. And J.D. Vance was, of course, there when this whole thing blew up, just as he was there in the Vatican the night before the Pope died. It's a bit like a cheap novel, isn't it?
Yeah. Forgive me for laughing, George, but it really, it's almost comical the way he just, he passes through like the Grim Reaper and starts causing all this chaos. I mean, it's really chaos. Obviously, I'm not seriously accusing him of having anything to do with it, but it does look a bit sketchy. I think his wife might be Indian. I think that's perhaps why he was in the country, was just for holiday. But so I don't know what. But he was taking selfies, as you said, in front of the Taj Mahal. I don't think he had anything to do with it. But the Russians, their relationship with, I would imagine China being more involved in this before we'd see Russia getting involved. Russia have Ukraine to worry about. I think that the fall of Syria was one less headache for them, from their perspective, to worry about. And they're also trying, from time to time to help mediate with Israel and the Israelis and Palestinians. So I don't think they're going to, despite their previous rapport, I don't think they're going to get involved with this now. And also the regime, the system, the government in India has changed significantly since the Cold War. Modi is more aligned with Netanyahu and with Trump than anyone else. So the Americans, they have a good relationship with both Pakistan and India. But when I say good relationship, I perhaps should measure my words, because their relationship with Pakistan was one of regime change. We shouldn't forget Imran Khan is in prison right now. And the Americans, we have proof that they had threatened him with ouster if he were to keep buying oil and gas and wheat from Russia, and if Pakistan wouldn't change its vote at the UN in terms of resolutions against Israel at the General Assembly. So, they got rid of Imran Khan because he was an obstacle. And, I can also go into more detail about their history in Peshawar and the Khyber Pass in the 80s. But, the Americans, they maintain a stranglehold over Pakistan, is perhaps the better term. And I don't think it's in favor of Pakistanis one bit. So, if they're going to lean on anyone's side or towards anyone, it's going to be towards India.
Yes, definitely. I thought that the Pakistan foreign minister, and I have no torch to carry for the current government of Pakistan, still less for the military leadership there. But the foreign minister had a point, didn't he, when the BBC reporter said to him, Pakistan has a long history of backing terrorist and extremist groups. And he answered, yes, we've been doing your dirty work for the last 30 years.
Yeah, that was really gold. I didn't see that one on the BBC, but I saw the defense minister say something almost identical on Sky News, and that was very tasty to watch, because it had taken him a few minutes to get it out, but he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. I mean, when we were posted in Pakistan, I remember, I have an explicit memory of going up to Peshawar, and this is early 1990s, so the Cold War has just ended. This is the beginnings of the Mujahideen splintering off into Al Qaeda, and who put these people there? I mean, it's the CIA. They went and opened this Maktab al-Khadamat, which is bureau services or a bureau of services in Peshawar, and they did it specifically there because it's right on the border with Afghanistan. It's a tribal area, or it used to be a semi-autonomous area, I think, until 2018. But at the time, it certainly was. And there was even a sign, I've got a photograph of it somewhere, where they even warn you before you go in that you're basically on your own, because the government bears no responsibility. So I'm just to give people an idea of how up for grabs and Wild West this area is. It really isn't under the control of Islamabad. So the Americans have been controlling that area, and they set up, the basis for the Mujahideen and Al Qaeda, and they've maintained control over that area ever since, and they used it significantly during their invasion of Afghanistan and the occupation that ensued afterwards. So, they are the ones who've created these terrorist organizations in Pakistan and that have plagued Pakistan and Afghanistan. The Americans are behind this. It's the CIA. And up until the Americans took over, the British Empire was controlling the Khyber Pass, which is extremely vital and strategic. So, this is an area that people need to grasp is very, very, very key, because you're close to China. You've got a vantage point over Afghanistan. You're basically in Pakistan, and you've got India underneath, and then you've got also Iran to your west. So it is extraordinarily strategic to be in this place, and the Americans have controlled it for decades.
And one of the new foreign alignments is the alignment between the Indian government and Netanyahu. They are, if you like, products of the same ideology, a kind of ethno-religious ideology. In Modi's case, Hindu supremacism. In Netanyahu's case, Jewish supremacism. Speak to that a bit.
Yes, it's true, and I mean, if you look at the way that Kashmir is viewed or treated by middle class, petit bourgeois Indians, it's sort of like the same way that Palestine is treated by the Israelis, or people who are maybe Jewish and have family in Israel, or dual Israeli citizenship. They just go there on vacation. they treat it like it's a vacation spot. And, you know, they claim to be outraged now, and I've no doubt that there is actual genuine outrage. I mean, this was a terrorist attack. But I'm speaking not about now, I'm speaking generally in how, you know, there's the same kind of colonial mindset of supremacism, as you pointed out. And I've always seen the two as being very alike. And it's no surprise that they find their roots in, as we were saying earlier, the British Empire. I'm really not surprised one bit, and people should start seeing the connection. You know, there's a reason that Netanyahu and Modi share such a close relationship, and there's a reason that when you go online, you see, you know, a plethora of pro-Israeli accounts that seem to be based in India. You know, it makes no sense, because you would think people in India would be opposed to other British colonial projects, given that they suffer themselves under British rule. But for some reason, this Hindutva, this right-wing Hindu supremacism, it just breeds a sort of fraternity with Jewish supremacism that we see from Israelis. You're absolutely correct in pointing that out, George.
One of the things which is clear is that the West has little influence that it can bring to bear on this, either because in America's case it doesn't want to, or because that horse has bolted from the stable. I mean, here are two countries with between them about almost 350, maybe more than 350 or so nuclear warheads, about to go to war. Britain has no influence, the former colonial power. The European Union has no influence. It's hard to see what handle we can have on this, in which case it may be the first conflict that is has its own agency, if you like, may not actually be being operated by Western countries.
Yes, it could be. It could be, and you know, it goes without saying. And I'm very aware of the irony with the UN helmet behind me, but the UN also has no agency or you know, control over the situation. Forget about it. I mean, probably even less than actual nation states. So, you know, China, for example, I was talking about earlier. China, you know, they helped Pakistan. Not you know, directly build their nuclear weapon, but let's say they basically look the other way. So, and you also alluded to the fact that they've had a closer relationship than, for example, India and China, where you know, look at India and China, they've had border clashes and so on. So China is not in a position to come in and mediate, because the Indians will think they're you know, acting on behalf of Pakistan in bad faith. You look at Iran. Iran has had clashes with Pakistan recently, so that's also not going to work for you know, for Pakistan to have Iran coming in, because they're not going to want to see that. And it really looks like there's no kind of handle on it, and that's very, very dangerous, because we've been rightfully not distracted but focused on Gaza and, you know, what Israel's been doing with Iran, but and Ukraine, of course, you know, and there were real risks of nuclear war there. But this is another one that people haven't been paying close attention to, and now it might fly off the handle. And I should also point out, George, that the escalation is real. This is not just, you know, talks. They, for example, anyone who's a Pakistani national in India has been given 48 hours notice to leave the country. All visas have been cancelled for Pakistani nationals. If you look at also military attaches, military officers, military advisors, they've all been expelled from the country. So that's Pakistani officers in India, they've been expelled. And you know, they've also closed a key border checkpoint between India and Pakistan. So, and not to mention the Indus Water Treaty potentially, you know, I mean, it's definitely been suspended on paper, but we still hope that there's a diplomatic solution. But that's probably the most egregious of all these escalations, because that one really affects people's day-to-day lives. It literally could kill and easily lead to a nuclear war. I mean, if you have nuclear weapons and someone cuts off your water supply, that's probably one of the top 5 things that would make you use those weapons, right?
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like we better cross our fingers and or pray. Richard Medhurst, as always, a tour of the horizon without a peer. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Let me go to London for a point of view from Fatima Nasseen. Fatima, welcome. What would you like to say?
Hi, George. Thanks for having me. So, given the history of the false flag operations in the region, including the unresolved questions around Pulwama, to what extent do you believe the recent Kashmir attacks could be used by India to justify further escalations against Pakistan? And what you mentioned earlier about the Modi-Netanyahu relationship, what strategic political interests might be driving this narrative?
Well, from an Israeli point of view, and I've got no evidence that they were involved in a false flag, but I'm sure it's a false flag, so I obviously am in the market for evidence of who might be responsible for it. But from an Israeli point of view, it's a further sowing of chaos in the world, further division in the international community, as it's called, and a further diversion from what Netanyahu is currently threatening. As just today, as Trump announces that he's on the way to a good deal with Iran, I know it's only a tweet and it could change by 5:30. There's no doubt about that. But he said he's on his way to a good deal with Iran. But on the same day, his client, Netanyahu, is openly threatening to destroy Iran's nuclear industry, to destroy its reactor, to destroy its nuclear infrastructure, even though Trump and the Iranian leadership say that they are in discussions, in negotiations, and Trump says that they're close to a good deal. So you can see that from Netanyahu's point of view, this false flag makes sense. The Israelis are more than capable of a false flag such as this, but others also are. So I personally rule out, and bear in mind, I'm not speaking for the Pakistani government or their military, both of whom I have less than zero relations with. But it's inherently unlikely that the Pakistani armed forces traveled 400 kilometers through the most densely populated military fortifications anywhere in the entire world and carried out this sordid murder of 26 civilians. So if not Pakistan, then who? Was it India themselves? Was it Modi himself? Was it an ally of Modi? One thing's for sure, nobody in Pakistan benefits from this atrocity that was carried out in Kashmir. But I return to my earlier point, Fatima. Kashmir is always a war waiting to happen. People just forget about it. They don't talk about it. Nobody tries to resolve it. But the people living under Indian occupation in Kashmir are not in a position to forget about it. They're living in exactly the same kind of circumstances as the Palestinian people in the West Bank are living under. Complete, utter repression. And so they'll never forget about it. And therefore, something like this can always happen, whether it's real or whether it has been fabricated for an ulterior purpose. Thanks, Fatima, for that call. Let's stay in London, where Sarah Mir has some points to make on what all this means for Pakistan. Sarah.
Hi, George. I just want to make a point here. Well, we are closely working with the PTI, we are pro Imran Khan, because as a Pakistani, I can see that attack is just to create a curiosity, and there is no such a report they can bring to the international level, international court for the investigation. But same as the Israel done, in the past, 40 baby beheaded and no clue. And same thing, like within a 30 minute, how you can say Pakistani did that, or Pakistani, any agency or anyone did that? Because as a Pakistani nation, right now they're making a point. This is just all about a politics, because Modi going toward the election, they want to win election because he lost already his reputation, same like in Nawaz Sharif and Shehbaz Sharif. So they using this toward like to check the pulse of the nation, like, oh, might be it's going to be war in Pakistan. People need to, together with the military, supposed to be military with the nation. This is what the stance of the Imran Khan's party. So right now, military is influence in Pakistan, and I'm here today to talk about a few things, especially about Imran Khan, because I know this all the false flag operation they doing since long time. Sometime they're doing attack. Is the ex director of the CIA, the American. He mentioned it. Hillary Clinton in so many his interviews, she mentioned it. Pakistani CIA do these things to get relevant into the politics. So Pakistani people's demand is this military need to stay on the borders. They need to stay in their domains. And what they done, I think the earlier Malik Imran, I guess, he talk about all the regime change, how it's come regime change in Pakistan. So right now, if we talk about Imran Khan, how come this military they put Imran Khan illegally in prison and have the 200 false cases? Okay, and right now all the cases are nearly finished. One was the last case was the false flag. Also, is the false allegation like 230 billion. Pounds, which is government already taken from the Supreme Court. So I'm just giving the little background about all those things, so you will get an idea what is going on. Because we every day contact with the lawyers who were fighting the case of Imran Khan. What they're doing right now is nearly 1.5 months. They don't let even family to see him. They don't let him to go inside his books. They don't let the talk with his kids like through the phone. Family, they are not able to see Imran Khan. The leadership of Imran Khan, solicitor, the lawyers, they're not able to see Imran Khan. And what they demand, and they want now Imran Khan to condemn the India. How he could condemn while letting people to go in and see Imran Khan? They're violating his basic human rights. So right now, Imran Khan is abducted through the generals, through the colonels, because Imran Khan so many times mentioned whenever he came to the court, he always see the cameras and he wave. He said, "Judge don't need to say anything. Colonel already make a decision about my cases. Say what you want to say." So this is like pathetical. Being a nation, I'm also, because we speak for Imran Khan, speak for human rights, speak against Pakistani government, because they stolen all the 230 million people's mandate, okay, on 8th of February 2024. And that's who done? All the military done. And they brought this all illegal government in Pakistan. So what they're doing right now, they don't letting anyone to say Imran Khan. We really want people to raise voice for Imran Khan, especially you. Like, this is human right violations. And before, when we had approach in the United Nations, they give verdict he's innocent about his all the cases, because they make all false cases in 6 months after the regime change. Okay, and after that, they British Parliament, we've been there thrice. They said all those things, and from the America, so many congressmen. But now the military is so influenced, they don't let Imran Khan to see his family, his
No, I
people,
know.
even his doctor.
Well, look, Sarah, I don't think there's anybody in Britain has raised their voice for Imran Khan more than me. I think a simple Google search would establish that. I'm not in second place to anybody when it comes to denouncing the regime change that took place under American direction of the rightful Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan. And I fully accept that in recent times, the Pakistani army is more likely to be out on the streets of Pakistan gunning down Pakistanis than it is intervening in occupied Kashmir. On these two things, we are in agreement. But that does not mean that the Pakistani government is guilty of this crime in Kashmir. I have not seen any evidence that points to their guilt, let alone evidence that was adduced within 15 minutes. The reality is that this smells to high heaven, this whole thing, and we have to get to the bottom of it. And the government of Pakistan has called for an independent international inquiry into the crime. But Prime Minister Modi is not interested in that. Lulu Bafagi is in Indonesia, the land of my own good wife. Lulu, welcome.
Welcome, Jules. Thank you for having me here. I just have a question regarding the situation right now, what's happening in India and Pakistan. Actually, I don't really know actually what happened there, but you said about false flag, and we know there's something happening also in Iran, in Bandar Abbas port. Many believe that Israel in fault in this, Israel actually behind this, because Prime Minister Netanyahu is trying to derail negotiations between Iran and the US. What's your take on this?
Well, I feel that if I was drawing up a short list of who might have performed a false flag operation, it's pretty obvious that Israel would be right at the top of that list. Although, I stress, I have absolutely no evidence of it. But circumstantially, if you look at the way in which Israel is busy all over the world in crimes like this, you'd have to say that the finger of suspicion might very well, in the end, point at them. Let's go to Pakistan, where Muhammad Mahad Samija is in the great city of Lahore. Muhammad, welcome. What would you like to say?
Let me introduce me to you. I am Muhammad Mahad Samija, a student vice president of the United States.
Unfortunately, we've lost we were losing your picture and now we've lost your audio. We'll try and get you back. Let's go back to London. Dr. Inayatullah Andrabi in London. Doctor, what would you like to say?
Yes, very respectfully, I would beg to differ with this false flag theory.
Sure, go ahead.
That India did it. I mean, I don't know who did it, but I'm sure India did not. Why? You know, India has been exactly like what Israel was doing, that everything is okay, there's no issue, there's no Palestine. And this was Netanyahu's position till 7th October 2023. In September, Netanyahu, MBS of Saudi Arabia, and Modi, they met in Delhi. There was a G20 conference, and they shook hands with each other, and they announced that they will be launching a trade highway from India to Europe, and it will be going through Middle East. And Netanyahu said that Tel Aviv will become the hub of world trade. So they have, as if there was nothing, no Palestine, nothing, and now they were thinking of progress. Suddenly, when 7th October happened, everything was demolished. This was a false and artificial manufactured reality which Israel had made that was demolished. Similarly, exactly similarly, India had built a false reality, manufactured a reality that there's nothing in Kashmir. It was because there were Kashmir was not governed properly. There were these families ruling and all this. Now we have put an end to it. We have scrapped Article 370. This is our government. This is union territory. India is directly ruling it, done and dusted. And now Kashmir is normal. Kashmir is the
May I
paradise
say?
on earth. So whosoever wants to go and enjoy yourself. Go and enjoy yourselves in Gulmarg, Pahalgam, go there. So tourists had come. Now
It's
what
a
happened?
fascinating thesis. Unfortunately, we've lost your audio also. It's a very good point that now Kashmir is back on the international agenda, where before it was not. So if it were an Indian false flag, it would be a particularly cack-handed one, achieving precisely the opposite of what you would think their wishes were. Let's go to London. Professor Khadija is in London. Professor, what would you like to say?
Hi, everyone. Hi, George. I actually have a question for you. The question is, so far, India hasn't been able to give any evidence that you have already established. You and Richard both have. The thing is, at the moment in Pakistan, we have a very Modi friendly regime. So how does that, what do you see the connection between them? And are we able to, like the current regime, able to defend itself on the world canvas? Would they be able to? How do you see the implication? And the thing is, when India has such a Modi friendly regime, what benefits do they get at the moment from what's happened in Kashmir?
Well, of course, it's still an open question, Professor, but the looming Indian elections are one issue. People in India are likely to rally to the Modi government's flag at a time of perceived external aggression and threat. And the Congress Party, the main opposition, were building a coalition that conceivably could have at least wiped out the majority in the Lok Sabha for Prime Minister Modi. So a surge in nationalist fervor built upon Hindutva fanaticism, you could say, would benefit Modi's government. You're right to say that the current government of Pakistan was essentially doing nothing on the Kashmir issue, neither on the international canvas, as you put it, nor on the ground. I've been involved for 40 years in this question, and I've never known a period where less was being done by the government of Pakistan to raise the issue of occupation in Kashmir. So that would be a strange time for that Pakistani government to send its military operatives 400 kilometers over the border to carry out this crime. So if India didn't do it, and if Pakistan didn't do it, well, where is the finger of suspicion beginning to point? You're the professor. Maybe you'll let me know. Let me go to London again, where Faiza Abbas has a point of view. Wonderful, lots of women callers today. Faiza, what would you like to say?
Hi, George. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity for the question. Leaving apart this question that who did it, do you see that this is an opportunity for India to pave a way for killing Muslim within, India as well as Kashmir, and it would also pave a way for India to attack Pakistan for taking Pakistani administered Kashmir, as they are claiming to do that, for example, within 48 hours whatsoever time they have given. And apart from that, do you see that an independent investigation is going to happen very soon, and would it really be independent and we could be able to rely on that investigation? Do you see all these things happening, or what are your reaction on that?
Well, I certainly think we should raise the demand for an independent investigation. But as I was just discussing with Richard Medhurst, nobody in the West has really got any kind of handle on all of this, and the United Nations even less than any of the Western governments. This is all happening, as it were, out of the normal controls and restraints. And it's hard to see who is going to intervene on this before it becomes a potential nuclear catastrophe. I think that the Indian government would be ill-advised to try and take Pakistan-administered so-called Azad Kashmir. That would lead to the collapse of the state in Pakistan. It would lead to the inevitable resignation of the government. It would lead to revolt in the army. It would play into the hands of the supporters of the imprisoned Imran Khan. So for those reasons, I don't think that will happen. The more likely course of action would be strikes against specific targets inside Pakistan, which Pakistan will have to answer. And that's what worries me, that a tit for tat, you can say I'm going to have a limited war, but limited wars very quickly can go out of control and become entirely unlimited wars. That's the long and the short of it. I think the very best thing would be for this to come under some kind of control bilaterally, and if possible with the interested parties, Russia, China, and so on. Ahmad Zulfikar is the last caller from the great city of Manchester. Ahmad, what would you like to say?
Hi, George. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I've born in Pakistan, and I've also lived in India for 3 years. It's a shame that we can't get along, because I've met some amazing people in India in my time, and most people just want to get on with their lives. So my question is that if the Indus Water Treaty does go out the window, then Pakistan have said that's a red line. I mean, is it justifiable then for Pakistan to take any means necessary?
Well, any other country would do so, and I'm sure that Pakistan will do so. If you abrogate unilaterally a treaty that's been extant since 1960, and on which between 50 and 80% of your country's needs are met through the mighty Indus River, this is as brazen, blatant an act of war as it's possible to imagine. And no Pakistani government could allow it to go uncontested. At this moment, it's just on paper. At this moment, it's just a slogan. And there's water on the ground in Pakistan for 2 to 3 weeks anyway, even if they actually stop the water. But it would very quickly become a matter of national survival. And no country, whoever their government were, whoever leads their military, whatever international relations they have, no government could survive allowing such a thing to happen. It would become an existential threat to hundreds of millions of people very quickly indeed. Well, look, it's been fast and furious. My apologies to those who didn't get on the show today. If you're one of those, come back next week at the same time and the same place, and we'll try to get you on the screen. Thanks for watching. Have it out with Galloway.